I started out wanting to serve God in the worst possible way. And I began studying the occult because I thought this was a way that I would become more Christ-like. I had realized that the most efficient way, the most powerful way to acquire occult knowledge was in fact to become a witch, my wife and I, and offered us to come down and study directly under him to become high priest and high priestess of the Druids. So that's what we did. And learning all the mysteries of the 5 points of the pentagram, all the mysteries of hermetics and mental magic and natural medicine and all sorts of stuff, began to tell us that if we really wanted to understand the deep parts of witchcraft, we need to get involved in Satanism. We need to read the Satanic Bible. Well, I joined the Church of Satan. In order to get into that, though, there was something very important I had to do. I had to become a Freemason, because you can't get involved in Satanism on the hardcore level without first being a Freemason. And I became a first, second, third degree Mason. I went through the York Rite. I went through the Shrine. This is my certificate as a sublime prince of the royal secret. That's the title, 32nd degree Mason. You'll notice the all-seeing eye up there, and you'll notice the motto, Ordo Ab Chao. The next thing that happened, before I could get onto the priesthood of Satanism, I had to get 7 people to sell their souls to the devil. The other thing I had to do, and this might astonish some of you, is I had to become a Catholic priest. I had to go back to my original vocation, because you cannot be a satanic priest unless, first of all, you're a Catholic priest. And if that surprises you, I just suggest that you go and you read some of the medieval literature. You'll see that that is in fact the case. I had discovered a bishop of the old Catholic Church in the city of Milwaukee who was more than willing to ordain me as a priest in exchange for me making him a witch priest. It was sort of a quid pro quo thing, kind of like what's going on at the White House these days. And this is my certificate, being ordained, consecrated as a bishop in the Gnostic Catholic Church. And you'll notice a couple of other things that might be important here. One is that you'll notice that this is the ancient and primitive rite of Memphis and Mizraim. Now, the rite of Memphis and Mizraim is the rite of Masonry that a lot of Masons aren't aware even exists. And this rite has 97 degrees. And I was raised to the 90th degree. And so, at this point, I made a choice. I was asked to make a choice. Because to move through what is called 8th degree within this particular system, I had to choose to either study lycanthropy or else vampirism. I was made to drink the blood, and by doing that, something happened to my blood, and I was actually physiologically transformed in many subtle ways. My blood type changed. It became impossible for me to eat. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't drink anything except blood. The only solid food I consumed was the Catholic communion host. And I lived like this for over a year. I couldn't go out in the daylight without getting blisters on my hands. But the point is, I was drinking blood, and I was addicted to blood. And within a couple of days, Mormon missionaries knocked at our door. And the funny thing about that, now that might seem, well, that's interesting, but what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Well, I'll tell you. What happens there is that I had been told many years earlier by this Grand Druid fellow down in Arkansas that if I ever got in really deep spiritual trouble, what I needed to do was join the Mormon Church, because the Mormon Church had been started by witches, for witches. An onion has layer after layer after layer after layer, and the outer layers don't know what's going on in the inner layers. This is the way secret societies are designed. This is the way cults are designed. That's why the typical Mason doesn't have a clue about anything that I'm talking about tonight. This is Edward Alexander Crowley, also known as Aleister Crowley. He styled himself the wickedest man in the world. He believed himself to be the great beast, and he changed his name to Aleister Crowley so it would add up in both English, Hebrew, and Greek Kabbalah as 666. In fact, he was a brilliant genius. He could play 8 chess games blindfolded. He was an accomplished poet, mountaineer, painter, writer. He had so many Masonic degrees that you could fill up 5 pages of a book with them. This guy was probably the most highly honored Mason in the world. It's like a non-stop, all-eternity orgy. So you're smoking dope, you're fornicating your brains out, you're listening to rock and roll through all eternity. That's where we get our word, assassin. is from the Arabic word hashishin. Now, why were they called hashishin? Because the word means eaters of hashish. Now, most of you probably have heard of hashish. Maybe some of you have. I certainly had my share in my day. Hashish is a powerful form of marijuana, a distillation of its chemically active ingredient delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, which is called THC for short, and it's what gives marijuana its hallucinogenic properties. So if you take hash, or as it's called colloquially, you get quite a buzz off it.